They weren't wearing badges. They didn't flash sirens. And they had no patience for courtrooms. Yet when four large men in matching fedoras and sharp suits appeared in a smoky alley or outside a glitzy nightclub, everyone in 1940s Los Angeles knew exactly what that meant. It was time to get out of town. This wasn't the mafia. This was the LAPD's infamous Hat Squad, a covert unit of detectives so feared in the 1940s and 1950s that their presence alone could send the toughest gangsters running. Their hats weren't just a style choice. They were a warning, a silent message that someone was about to be pushed out of the city, or disappear completely. The story of the Hat Squad began with two imposing officers, Clarence "Red" Stromwall and Max Herman. Both stood over 6 feet tall and looked like they were carved out of granite. When they began wearing identical straw hats and tailored suits, they transformed into walking symbols of intimidation. They looked nothing like traditional beat cops, and that was exactly the point. These men weren't writing traffic tickets or directing pedestrians. They were hunters, and criminals were their prey. By the early 1950s, Ed Benson and Harry Crowder joined the ranks, and the squad's signature look, the snap-brim fedora, became legendary. The hats became a kind of badge all their own, a statement that the LAPD had its own unique way of dealing with organized crime. The Hat Squad wasn't subtle. Weighing a combined total of more than 1,000 pounds, the four detectives filled any doorway they entered. Witnesses said the atmosphere changed instantly when they appeared. Conversations stopped. Crowds scattered. Mobsters quietly slipped away into the night. They didn't wear uniforms, but everyone knew who they were. "My ID is on my head," they liked to say, tipping their hats. It was a uniform that needed no badge, no introduction, and no second warning. Officially, the Hat Squad worked under the Robbery Homicide Division, but in truth they operated far beyond traditional police boundaries. In an era when Los Angeles was struggling with corruption, vice, and the growing power of organized crime, these men became both heroes and villains, depending on who was telling the story. Their legend remains one of the most fascinating chapters in Los Angeles history of the 1940s and 1950s, a time when law enforcement, style, and intimidation merged into one unforgettable symbol. A simple fedora that told the city's underworld their time was up. They didn't collect fingerprints. They didn't wait for warrants. Their true weapon wasn't a gun or a badge, it was fear. The LAPD's Hat Squad didn't exist to make arrests or fill out paperwork. Their mission was simple: push the city's criminal element out of Los Angeles through psychological warfare, intimidation, and relentless pressure. And in the tense post-war years, when the East Coast Mafia began carving into LA's underworld, those tactics were exactly what the city wanted. Figures like Bugsy Siegel, who brought East Coast casino muscle to Hollywood, and Jack Dragna, LA's quiet but powerful crime boss, were tightening their grip on gambling, extortion, and prostitution. Los Angeles was on the brink of becoming the next Chicago, and someone needed to send a message that the city wouldn't bend. That message came wearing fedoras. The Hat Squad didn't follow a rulebook. Their methods were creative, controversial, and often illegal. Once, they disguised an LAPD car as a phone company truck to plant a listening device inside a mob-connected business. Another time, they parked outside a suspect's home for days, never speaking, never moving, just to make sure he knew he was being watched. As one former officer later admitted, "We did things that would get us indicted today." And he wasn't exaggerating. The squad was known for beatings, warrantless wiretaps, and intimidation tactics that blurred the line between policing and vigilantism. Still, for years the department, and much of Los Angeles, applauded them. Their targets were some of the most dangerous men in America. Jack Dragna, the silent boss of LA, controlled a vast criminal network from the shadows. Bugsy Siegel, flamboyant and ruthless, ran casino operations that tied Hollywood to national crime syndicates. Yet even these men, untouchable in most cities, didn't want to see four fedoras walking toward them. Stories spread quickly through LA's nightlife. One Hollywood club owner reportedly bricked up his back in trance just to prevent a surprise visit from the Hat Squad. They weren't just cops anymore, they were urban legends, myths, and tailored suits. Despite their shadowy methods, many Angelinos saw them as heroes, the last line of defense against organized crime. City officials, terrified that Los Angeles might fall to mob control, gave them near total freedom to do whatever it took. But power without oversight rarely ends cleanly. As the 1950s drew to a close, rumors began to swirl. Internal affairs received quiet complaints, whispers of planted evidence, suspects beaten in alleys with no witnesses, and cases that never appeared on paper. Still, the Hat Squad seemed untouchable. Their suits stayed pressed, their hats stayed sharp, and their legend only grew. Then came the scandal that changed everything. In the late 1950s, one member, Jerry Wooters, developed a relationship that was too close, some said, with Jack Whalen, better known as the Enforcer, a hitman under Jack Dragna. When Whalen was gunned down during a dispute with Mickey Cohen's crew, suspicion fell not just on the mob, but on the LAPD itself. For the first time, the public began to wonder whether the Hat Squad was still fighting organized crime, or had become part of it. The fallout was immediate. Investigations began. Internal Affairs demanded to know how many operations the squad had run off the books and how many rules they had broken in the process. By the early 1960s, the LAPD quietly dissolved the Hat Squad. Some officers were reassigned. Others retired. A few even reinvented themselves. One later became a judge. But through it all, no member of the Hat Squad was ever formally disciplined. Their legend didn't die with the unit. You can still see their influence in Hollywood noir films, gritty detective novels, and the DNA of LA's toughest modern police divisions. The story of the Hat Squad is a haunting reminder of a time when justice in Los Angeles wore a fedora, and the line between hero and villain was blurred beneath its brim. Just like the later Crash, SIS, and the infamous Gangster Squad, the LAPD's Hat Squad left behind more than just a story, they created a template. Each of these later units carried forward the same controversial idea, that sometimes to fight crime, the law had to operate outside the law. In those shadowy years of Los Angeles history in the 1940s and 1950s, justice didn't always come from a badge. Sometimes, it came from a quiet knock at the door or the shadow of a fedora on the sidewalk. The Hat Squad wasn't just a group of detectives. They were the city's unspoken answer to a dangerous question. How far are we willing to go to keep Los Angeles clean? The truth is complicated. They did help drive out organized crime, but they also blurred the line between protector and predator. Their legend was built not by following the rules, but by making sure no one, not even the mob, could ignore them. Today the Hats are long gone. The streets are different, the city has changed, but in certain old neighborhoods the stories remain. People still whisper about a Cadillac with no plates cruising slowly past a club. About 4 towering men in fedoras standing outside a bar, and by morning that bar was boarded shut. The Hat Squad might not appear in your history textbooks, but they left their fingerprints all over Los Angeles. Just not the kind you can dust for evidence. If you love uncovering the darker, hidden corners of Los Angeles history, don't forget to like this video. Share your thoughts below. Do you think the Hat Squad were heroes or villains? Subscribe to History Love for more stories that reveal the truth behind the myths of America's past.